Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Pony Island is a suspense puzzle game in disguise. You are in limbo, trapped in a malevolent and malfunctioning arcade machine devised by the devil himself. The devil detests having puzzles solved and poor programming exposed. You will need to think outside the box to proceed, and you will be insulted when you do. In Pony Island, you will peer behind the rotting curtain of Pony Island to repair its broken code, be forced to play along with the devil's demented game of ponies, explore the depths of the cryptic software system that his game runs. And that's all you get. It does say in the smaller one, it is not a game about ponies. So
It certainly was not.
You've been given the trailers,
Yeah.
you've been read the store page, now it's time to make sure the audience get what they need out of this particular chat. Could last 2 minutes, could last 2 hours.
I mean, how's this got on the radar then?
I've had it for years. It's been on that Steam library for
It's a Steam game.
fucking... I think it's only on... It is actually only on Steam, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. They might have ported it, but... It was £5, I think. It might have even been on sale when I bought it, so it's probably £2.50. And I remember just seeing a random review of it, like bigging it up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll play that one day," and then obviously never did. It sat there since probably 2018, and then I made a sort of a list of games that I wanted to get through that I knew were kind of shorter, generally, and this was the first one on that list. So. Yeah,
interesting.
Jumped into it. It ain't long. My playtime 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So it is very short, really. And you know, for a £5, I think that's about right. Anyway, not that truly matters to me. If it was £50, that's what I'm saying.
£50 an hour. Cool.
Well, yeah, maybe. But if it was like £30, that would be, you know, one of those cases where I say that is exceedingly dear for what you're offering here. I could go back in, like there are some, I guess, collectibles or secrets that you can go back in to find, but I ain't gonna do that because it's, you know, it's not relevant to me. It's like I'm not gonna go and get all the achievements or anything. One and done, walk away, either happy or sad depending on whether I enjoyed it or not.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I don't know where to start unbuttoning this because I was so confused. So, literally, I'd encourage everyone to go and watch the trailer, like the first 10 seconds. It's like, what is this? And all of a sudden it takes this dark turn, if you like. And I was like, honestly, it lost me from there. I was like, I don't even know what I'm watching here. So how does that translate into a playable video game? Like, I assume you knew what it was all about. Like, I don't get the suspense bit. I was like, yeah, there's puzzle there, but it looks like a 2D platformer style.
It kind of is. It kind of isn't. It's one of these really weird games where it's close to being overindulgent. Of like, you know, it is. I mean, it's done by this chap called Daniel Mullins under his like self-published and self-development studio named Daniel Mullins Games. And like in the credits, there's probably about 12 people that worked on it, and probably 9 of them were localization specialists to, you know, port it to different countries' languages and whatnot. So it really is, you know, what we would refer to back in the day as an indie game, like when Fez came out and Super Meat Boy, and probably Braid as well. They were sort of the 3. Now it seems like any old tutor can be labelled as indie, and then you look at it's like a 50-strong team. 10-cent fucking backing. You're like, well, we lost. It's like the same with that bloody music industry. Like indie rock no longer became independent; it became a genre of music that sounded the same. And it's like, well, hang on,
that's not what it was about. That's not the It's not what we liked it for.
Right, well,
but this is a couple of people, really, one or two people.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you got Mullins, who's running the show basically, and he's got a consultant there and a musician, and they've cobbled this together, and it's very strange. It's one of these sort of games where going too deep into the what, the why, and the how would probably give away too much. It kind of is one of these things that if you are at all interested, sort of go off and play it. But essentially, that description is somewhat accurate and does give away the kind of storyline. You're essentially, it's like an arcade machine, they call it, but it's more like a computer terminal that you operate at. So you load the game up and you're presented with a screen, like an old terminal screen, and you're interacting with that throughout the game. You can click on the menus. You can launch Pony Island, which is a game within this machine, which is a very quaint or crude, depending on where you want to look at it. Not quite, I wouldn't call it an endless runner, but platform where you auto runs and you essentially have to jump over things and shoot things to, stop yourself from dying. If you get hit, you go back to the beginning of the level and you have to get to the end. And that's the game that, as it mentions in the description, that the devil wants you to play. He wants you to play that game and be happy with it. But inside this terminal, there are other forces that are like, look, this isn't good. You need to find a way of escaping from the arcade machine. So rather than just playing Pony Island, they all present other opportunities for you to unlock and decode and kind of work your way through the terminal to its back end. Not literally, but in the game context. To kind of undo what the devil's doing. That's ultimately your goal at the end of this, and it's this to and fro between how the terminal's set up to play. So you might play several levels of Pony Island, for example, but there's also very light programming puzzles where it's essentially just learning keys and almost like not an algorithm. What's that fucking formula called in maths? Algebra, sort of, X equals this. So when you hit this icon, the icon will. So when you hit this icon, the cursor will do X. So it will skip 2 spots down. You might want to have to avoid a certain line of code. It'll be like it'll go down this list, and then you go right, hit that, skip that line. That's a very simple way of describing. They get more complex, but that's the game's kind of split between that element, the Pony Island elements, where you're kind of forced to play the game, and then also just exploring the terminal through its menus. So, going into the settings, you fuck about in this game all you want. You'll find all different secrets and whatnot and funny things. So it's one of those games where you're kind of encouraged to find your own way and have a real prod and poke around. You're normally rewarded with some sort of comedy, but it's very, very strange, is what I'd say. But it's intentionally strange in a way to fuck with you. It does some really clever things to fuck with you as a player, essentially. It wants to play tricks, and it successfully deploys those tricks several times throughout. And even though it's a nonsense, you'll still be like, oh, what's going on here? Like, it is this fourth wall breaking type moments and has all those sort of elements. So that's the nutshell version of it, really. It's not something that many people probably would have heard of, but this was Daniel Mullins' first game. Since then, he's gone on to do the Hex, and the most well-known one now is Inscription, which was, I think that might have even won a BAFTA when it came out one year. So the plan is to work my way through those titles, because there's going to be a Pony Island 2 at some time, either this year or next year.
Is that been announced, or did the game allude to that, or both?
It's been announced. That has been announced. Now, whether there's an Easter egg that announced it 8 years ago, probably. It's probably sitting in there somewhere.
Right, got you.
So it's been thought ahead, most likely.
So what we're saying is Daniel Mullins is a clever bastard. Is he too clever for his own good, though?
Well, I think that's where people will be turned off, won't they, potentially, is what is he playing? I think this is perfectly fine. I think this is a good, interesting game. You've got You've really got to be open to it, though. You can't be going in going, well, I want me Call of Duties and this isn't that. I mean, people do this all the time. I see it and I think, what are you doing? You play Call of Duty. Why are you trying this? Got to have an open mind, because it's unlike anything you've likely have played before. It is very basic in terms of its look and its feel and its sounds and whatnot. Probably intentionally, but also it's a true indie game. And at the end of it, you get a 2.5 to 3 hour experience that you might not remember for the rest of your life, but you'll probably come out thinking, yeah, that was clever and it didn't overindulge. If this was 12 hours, obviously, again, we're talking what you're doing, Mullins. It didn't need to be that long, but at that sort of time length, it doesn't really have enough time to overindulge. It's just very weird and very strange, like almost to the point where you think that's too strange. Like, it's too intentionally odd for its own good. Maybe that could be a criticism,
right? So, what did you like about this game then? Other than I assume you liked the weirdness, but what about it particularly? Because obviously it's not going to have groundbreaking mechanics or groundbreaking graphics. Like what is it that you liked about it?
I did like the cleverness or the strangeness and the weirdness. That's definitely threaded throughout, and that is it's pleasing to see, because I said not really played anything like this before. The last time I played a game where I didn't know this was the case of Pony Island. I only understood this in retrospect, that I hadn't really played anything like this before. But I remember on the Amiga, it might have been. Was it the Amiga or the Commodore? Both the same, but I had a floppy disk and the tape Commodore, basically. There was a game called Hover Bother, I think it was called. And it said on the little box, it said, you've never played a game like this before. I thought, oh, what's that all about? You look on the back, you can't make head nor tail of what the game is.
Yeah.
And it was kind of right, but it was also just a top-down puzzle game where you move this bloke around cutting lawns and there's a dog chasing you. And I was like, I haven't played a game set like this, but I have played very similar games like this.
Yeah.
That's not the case of Pony Island. I've not really encountered anything like this, of this blend. I've played a lot of strange games in my time, so I do like that. I like the basic kind of Pony Island game when you boot that part of the game up and those levels. They're very simple, but they're satisfying just to work for. They get more and more challenging, as you'd expect, so you've got to be on the ball there. And like the programming puzzles, as I kind of call them, where you're trying to expose the bad program or the bad code that's in the machine, they're good. They're actually good brain teasers. They start off again pretty easy, but they crank it up and add complexity, and they do a nice roll out of that. I was getting towards the back end, like, this is getting really hard now, but when you come out the other side of that, then you're laughing. So it was, in the end, just balanced perfectly. But it was starting to push back. I wasn't just walking through it, and then eventually it really had to scrape the bottom of my mind to figure out how to do this, because what seemed simple became very tricky, and there's a sense of satisfaction there. So those are the elements I enjoyed about the game, and that's a lot of the game. That's a lot of the core game, really. There's not a lot not to enjoy, but those items in particular stood out and whatnot.
Right. So, anything about it beyond some particularly frustrating puzzles that you weren't a fan of?
I just think the whole devil trapping you in a machine, just as a setup, and it's just not very compelling. Again, I'm not expecting fucking Shakespeare or The Last of Us or any Dickens, whatever you want to cite.
I like the way there you've gone Dickens, Shakespeare, The Last of Us, the three cornerstones of story.
I want to just give different mediums of storytelling, you know. But I wasn't expecting that, but I just think that just seemed thrown together almost.
Yeah.
It's not very. You're essentially playing the game to play the game, not to work the story. They try. I think they give a go at trying to offer some stakes and offer a reason, but I think that's part of the weirdness and the strangeness where it didn't really land for me.
Devil's got nothing better to do.
Well, apparently not. And again, I was like, the devil. I was like, we're really thinking Like, am I supposed to believe this is the devil as well? We're going through this.
Could have come up with saying like some sort of like computer program that's trying to do that to you, rather than like a demonic entity, I suppose. But
yeah, I just the entire setup of it actually is not to my liking. It just didn't. I was like, okay, it probably didn't need to be this strange. It could have been something a little bit more straightforward. So yeah, that's probably the main downer I'd put. In terms of other downers, it's so limited in what it offers, really. And perhaps that's a critic. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a bit of a criticism. That it is what it is at the end of the day. And I'm not going to rake it over the coals for that. But in terms of like depth and you know, perhaps variety, it maybe struggles a tiny bit. But then again, you know, you've got 3 people essentially working on this. One's a consulted designer, so he's got feet up 80% of the time, just charging by the hour, I'd assume. That's Simon Jenkins, if you want to get some design consulting out there. So yeah, it's what do you expect from a true indie game that costs £4.50, in fact.
I mean, at least he's charging something reasonable for it. I mean, it's easy for these to come out and they go $12.99. You go,
yep. That's the minimum. Like, it almost works against it though, because when you see a game for such low price, I think that must be just complete. It must be a free to play that they've just thought we need to get some money out of this. There is this weird human assumption that if you pay more, the product's better. If you see something advertised for a higher price, it's of better quality, and that some things just aren't worth your time if they're priced so low.
Guy, I can't remember his name. But whenever he's like a marketing consultant, right? And whenever he goes into businesses where their products aren't selling enough, the first question always has is, have you put the price up?
Yeah.
Right? Which is a weird thing to do, but he says, you've got nothing to lose. Because at the very least, you'll get more money in. And actually, people tend to there's this assumption, quality versus price.
Yeah.
Like you're paying for something better and it costs more, which isn't usually even the case, right? You're just paying for a brand or something so you do wonder sometimes with these little cheap tutters whether they are just cheap tutters, and you go, well, that's £5 down the drain. It is a tricky balance, unless it's something you know or you've seen someone play or whatever it is, and you just go, well, that's an absolute bargain. But I think for me, like the lowest price where I'm like, that ain't, my instant reaction isn't Ultimate 2, it's $7.99. I don't know why. Like if I was to buy something off Steam and it's $7.99, I go, any lower than that, and I'm like, what are we doing? Obviously not on a discount.
No, discounts should always take home to the bank, but yeah, I mean that is an interesting concept. So I want to go on Amazon. If I'm buying some like this boom stand I got here, this thing, I went to Amazon and I was like, right, whatever I put in, mic, boom stand, I might have put the make of this particular microphone in, or the type of whatever that fucking thing's called that holds it up. And then I looked in there and I was like, well, I'm not going to get the cheapest one. Just immediately that was written off, and I'm not going to get the most expensive one because you feel like you're getting conned. So immediately it was written off. Just in my head, I was like, no, can't get, because the cheap one must be complete turt, when in fact that may have been best bang for your buck. But there we go. That's the.
It is tricky to find. So
Mullins had to navigate that.
I don't really know what else to ask you about this. Was there like some sort of catchy theme tune running along with that?
There's a good soundtrack. Yeah, that's pretty serviceable. The sound effects as well are quite what I'd call it analog, and there's a
retro.
Chat very very much. It fits the aesthetic of the terminal and the game, because it is very retro and very old school. It's not 4K fucking silk crisp. It's lower kind of resolution and very very basic by design. But yeah, we had our musician Jonah Senzel. Apparently that's the third leg of this tripod of named individuals that were put on. I kind of think pedestal.
Fair play if you're out there just doing it and you find a musician and like do all this kind of stuff. I think good on you, Dan.
Yeah, and you can buy the soundtrack if you want it. Like if you love it that much, there is a soundtrack for £1.69, which I've not got.
Who's doing that?
I don't know. He's listening to it on YouTube, isn't it?
It's mad. So is there anything else you particularly want to call out about this game?
I don't think so, because I'm wary of just going too far. Because
overindulging it.
You just want to, that as well. Like it can't be, if it's went on for an hour, that's almost half the game's runtime talking about it, and talking around it mostly. And I think it's one of those things that look at a trailer, read the description, have a think, and if you've got a spare evening and £5 to your name, you might want to just pick this up and give it a go, because he's now doing it. Like Inscription was a breakout kind of game for Mullins, so it's interesting to go back to the beginning and see where it all began.
Follow the journey. It's like following Kojima from the start before he was famous.
Well, to go well back, and some of those games are took, whereas at least Mullins here is chucked out 2.5 hours of easily digestible took potentially. So it ain't a time sink, and it's kind of interesting to see the genesis. And after this, I was like, okay, I'll move on to the Hex next. I sort of decided off the back of this that it got the tick in the box. I was like, I might as well follow this through, and then eventually I'll get to Inscription, and then eventually I'll get to Pony Island 2 Panda Circus when that comes out. So it's now like a little series or a little developer I'll probably follow throughout once I've eventually caught up. So in that sense, it's kind of a success, Pony Island, even in 2024, a game that came out 8 years ago in 2016. So
is this the sort of thing you'd have played 5 years ago?
More likely. Basically, I went from playing these sorts of games and finding them to completely stopping and sort of return to it. So there's a period, probably when the PS5 and the Xbox Series X came out, like that new gen. I got the new PC shortly afterwards, and I was like, right, let's get the big boys in.
Let's play the big stuff that fully
utilises
my spend here on all this tech.
Yeah, and then since last year really, but mostly this year as well, I've been like, right, let's just go back and look through what was lurking. Why did I buy this? Why did I put it on my wish list? Let's go and finish it off. And knowing that it was a short game, like less than 5 hours, it's no harm, no foul to me. Like there's very few games that, unless they're impossibly hard, that I'm gonna lose my rag with and be annoyed about playing through. So it's one of those things. It's sort of a repair jobby, but having come out of like the obsession with getting the big tech games, it's nice to play something completely separated from that. And you do find, as I said, you find interesting, strange stuff when you have a look around and go after these games. So it's all about the experience. These video games, it's not necessarily enjoyment, because enjoyment to me is like, I'm having fun collecting these apples, running around. Like there's a dopamine in your head that's making you. This is more like just you go through the experience, and then afterwards you think about it and think, that was not enjoyable, but I'm glad I have that experience and those memories to go back in. We use the Last of Us games. They're not particularly entertaining when you think about what's going on. Schindler's List, not particularly uplifting or entertaining. You're not sitting there with a smile on your face. You're going, like you sit there and go, this is pretty bleak, but you come out the back of it, it might make you think a little bit, or you're just like, that was worth just having that process, going through that story or hearing that narrative. So a similar sort of play here. Not going to be. I mean, the Pony Island game is probably fun for about 8 seconds, like in terms of its uniqueness. But after that, it's about just prodding and poking and seeing what weird stuff the game's going to throw up next.
Right. There you go. Don't play this if you want enjoyment, is the headline.
Yeah, if you want just out and out fun. Well, I just think people should play mobile games if they want their fucking brain to be switched off to that rot, because that's what they're there for, aren't they? Like short, sharp rot of the brain at a slow pace. Like
play RuneScape if you want that. If you want brain rot,
they literally are designed to do that as well. There's people in those places making them to manipulate the brain to make them.
100%. Yeah. So no doubt about that.
Go and play that cack if you want it. Well, it's not cack, is it? Because I've played my fair share. Not for a while though. Well, that battery on that phone keeps dying. This is getting old. This Samsung. probably
No.
3 or 4 years.
Oh, is it? They're not built to last, mate. They've got a 2-year shelf life, really, and then anything more than that is an absolute Brucey.
If I try and take pictures on it, it will just evaporate the battery like 15-20%. And then when it gets to like 30%, it might as well be 5% because it seems to really drop off then.
I don't like those Samsungs. I've never really got on with their bloatware, as I call it.
They have lots of shit. There's a lot
of shit on there. I think it's because I used to have a Samsung work phone, and it was just the most diabolically slow piece of shit. And it just soured my whole experience of Samsung products. So I never went back to them.
No, don't know how I ended up.
Oh, and I had that TV as well. That fucking not TV, the monitor that went down the shit pan as well. That I had to send back.
Right.
So, like, I've had two. Saying that, my current monitor is Samsung, but I've 2 out of 3 experiences have not gone well with it, so I've never bothered.
LG or nothing is my view on TVs.
Yeah, I've got LG. Yeah, my TV's LG. Yeah, life's good.
Is that what that stands for?
No.
What does it stand for?
It stands for something else, but they just chucked it out there as part of a marketing campaign, didn't they? I actually don't know what LG stands for. So it's something goods, isn't it?
Probably. Someone
it started off
as
a real tin pot shit company.
I could just look it up, couldn't I? Whilst we're here.
Well, you could.
I'm doing the unthinkable and just putting it into Google, which chucks up. That'll chuck up any old crap, really. Lucky Gold Star. Originally stood for Lucky Gold Star, but now is being promoted as the meaning of life's good.
Lucky Gold Star. Whoa.
Interesting.
There you go. They kept it, which is interesting.
Formerly the LG Group. Oh no, they were the LG Corporation or LG Group. They were formerly known as Lucky Gold Star. So at some point they transitioned to LG. Someone went, get that trash off, just shorten it. That's like saying Dimp Digital changed it to DD.
Good work.
Could it? Good. Still those logos again. Dave. He's listening. Anyway.
Reset.
What do we need to do? Oh!
So,
yeah.
We're back to the game.
I was about to close the episode down there.
Yeah, we can do that because we have to decide whether it goes into the gallery or not.
Where else could it go?
Well, we could just chuck it on the fucking pavement outside, I guess.
There's self-storage!
I know you don't like me making it up as I go along, but I will continue doing it.
Self-storage. Because those bin men don't take extra stuff. I had it last week. Cardboard they wouldn't take.
What do you mean they wouldn't take it?
You know, you got the recycling and whatever.
Yeah.
It was recycling day. Put a load of cardboard in the bin like you always do another turn.
Yours is different to mine, though, because you have them 1 week, they do one thing, the other week they do the other, didn't they?
Yeah. Anyway. Didn't all fit in the bin. Some cardboard boxes are actually quite large, so
yes,
you have to fucking cut them up yourself, or you fold them up and put them by the side and they take them, usually. Last week they decided not. They decided just to leave them on the pavement. I was like, well, why are you being inconsistent?
Why am I paying my council tax and you ain't
for that?
doing your job?
Goes up every fucking year, and that's happening.
Yeah, went up the maximum they could uplift it this year as well, and they're not taking a cardboard. To be fair to our bin men, doesn't matter how you chuck it out there, they take it.
Yeah,
it don't have to be folded, nothing. They'll let it happen.
I don't know how they work. I don't know if there's different people that operate the different bins. Like it's a different team essentially. Yeah. But the non-recycling, the black bin bagged took where you just where you try and sneak like the odd TV in, like if you want to try and get rid of it, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I've seen it happen.
Sneak the
or
odd
like some
TV.
Printer or something, not a TV, that's a bit big, but you can sneak stuff in there that shouldn't go in there. They have taken bags on the outside, like the bin's full, but put an extra bag on the outside. They've just grabbed it and chucked it.
They don't like it though, do they?
Well, I'm not there to deal with it. I just watched them once do it, and I thought, well, they're doing that, so well done.
I find the inconsistency glaring because I could chuck. We've got no bins here, so I could chuck out there 50 black bin bags and they'd take the lot. But
so if I wanted to, I should actually come to where you live and drop the black bin bags off just outside.
Yeah.
And they'll just take it.
Yeah.
Might do that. I actually might do that.
So if you got to,
I've got to
with the cardboard.
Trying to clear this fucking room out here, all this crap in the background, and there's sacks of black bins being piled up. Needs to go.
Well, it's gone now. You have to do it next week.
They come every week, do they?
Yeah. So we get recycling and non-recyclable every week, and bin and garden, the whole shebang. every
Yeah.
Friday. Comes round, done.
All bagged though. What does the recycling do?
Yeah.
Is that
We got
boxed?
pink. No, we got pink. So we've got pink recycling. So that's like plastic and all that turt.
Yeah.
We've got black bag turt.
Yeah.
We've got garden bin, which you have to pay extra for, by the way, which is unbelievable. And then you've got a food bin. So that's a little blue bin.
It's
And then
different
you've
to the
got
garden bin.
Yeah, which is different to the garden bin. And then we've got a blue cardboard bin as well that we have to put cardboard in.
So the compostables in ours is like, that's the food bin and the other two combined. That goes every week, and that rarely gets a quarter full. That's the one.
Yeah.
I know it can fucking stink, but that's the one that never gets filled up unless I've cut a tree
but
down.
you're lucky as well, though, because you haven't got any of that garden hassle to deal with. Whereas I literally filled all mine up, and I have done for about the past 4 weeks. By Sunday with turt.
Yeah.
So I have to pay extra, so it should come every week in my view.
Yeah.
Anyway, so gallery. I don't know where this self-storage is lurking. No one has a self-storage in a gallery.
No, it's outside and it's in the car park.
Right, like a container.
Yep. We rent out the self-storage.
Shipping container.
They are, aren't they? But they're called. They basically shipping containers that people had left over, and they went, this market that has self-storage. And then that's it now. So that's a booming industry. And then you've got Storage Wars coming along, really giving it the leg up. So
yeah, but the actual self-storage company is not a series of. I mean,
I don't know.
Just a load of doors. Have you ever been in there?
No.
It's like a fucking prison, and there's just doors everywhere, just rows and rows of doors. It's mad. It's an experience going in there.
I don't play. If I need to do that just for myself, then there's something gone wrong in this house.
I've got too much.
Obviously, if you inherit stuff, that's a different kettle of fish. But if your own home is overflowed to the fact that you need to just chuck your own stuff in there.
The only thing that I have ever been there for is when I used to go on holiday with my dad. We'd go like camping for a week or 2 weeks or something, like down south and west coast and stuff. He would take his expensive tools out of the garage,
chuck them in there,
and chuck them in self-storage.
So we wouldn't have it all year round. Just
no, he'd literally rent it out for 2 weeks. Put all his tools in the van, or the ones that he couldn't do without, and then put them in self-storage because he was like, right,
can't do without.
No one's getting in here.
Yeah, that's the trouble with these robbing bastards. You have to do things like that.
And that was before they started going around nicking them out of vans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, gallery.
Yes, in the gallery.
Cool, in the gallery.
Not in the self-storage outside in the car park.
Right, you decide then, but it will be critiqued wherever you put it.
Bronze. Simple.
Interesting.
Might have had a ceiling of a silver. If it all came together and I was really blown away by it, of a clever story.
What could it have done more?
I think just the setting of the
narrative.
Yeah, I think that whole setting just wasn't quite there for me. But everything else was pretty good. So, not to completely shit all over it was the aim of the game, but also not to oversell it as some sort of miracle.
Yeah.
But then again, it's what do you expect for this sort of price and runtime? It's really hard to have something that kind of special to move it up the ranks. So I think there's a ceiling of a silver there if it had pulled together for me a more compelling narrative. But obviously not the priority, and it's there it does some clever things, and you'll be surprised as you play through it. You'll be smirking sometimes, you'll be smashing the mouse on the desk or whatever you've got sometimes, but ultimately I very much doubt you'd have played a game like this before. So if that's of interest, that's my recommendation to those. If it doesn't sound like it's interesting, then steer clear, because you'll just be like, what are we doing? What's going on?
Yeah, can he argue with that? I sometimes like playing something a little bit weird though. Obviously, I don't like scary stuff, but I like games that are just
psychological horror. It says here is a tag. I'm not sure about that, but
yeah,
I suppose the devil's lurking.
I wouldn't do that, but I like something that's a bit. Everything's so obvious now, like in terms of what you're going to play, and it's nice to play something that's sort of you don't really know what it's going to do next.
No, exactly. Yeah.
A bit like Spiritfarer.
Well, we knew what that was going to do next, and unfortunately, it went on for 30 hours. Didn't have much more in its hand, did it? But no, Pony Island earned itself a bronze. I think on that note, we can close down Idle Game Chat until the next episode. So let's get the hell out of here. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.
I can see for Dimp Digital, this is my review for Final Fantasy VII Intermission, part of the Intergrade package DLC for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PS4, would have been a PS4 Pro back then, and went for it, loved it, brilliant. Can't remember what score I give it, certainly a gold, maybe even probably not a platinum, but a gold. I have highest order. So it's been 4 years since I played that and completed it, and then was late to the party with this DLC, and played it recently, finished it, thought it was pretty good. It was quite interesting seeing what the main character, which is based on Yuffie, a character that you do play in the original, but she comes on a bit later in the story. You meet her, so she wasn't originally part of the timeline of the remake game, because that's just the Midgar section. So it's interesting to see a character, what they were doing at that time, like a different new perspective. But yeah, so it's quite a cool little story. Nice and short. It was only like 4 or 5 hours. Worth the money. I think I picked it up for about 12 quid. So not too drastic. But the game itself, yeah, it's pretty much standard really. More of the high quality game storytelling and character building that Final Fantasy VII Remake gave. Its gameplay was good. It was nice to play with a different character. Actually played completely different to the other characters from Remake. She played sort of more of a long range tactic, a bit like Barrett, but she has a lot more magic to her arsenal. But yeah, it was nice to play with a character. Had some cool moments in there. Same sort of score. Musical score, that is, as the first one, so still high grade. It's just basically trying to introduce this character. Therefore, playing Rebirth, you sort of have a bit of prior knowledge, and it sort of bridges that little gap in between the two. So she's not just chucked in. Yeah, enjoyable. Some cool little missions. Not too much side stuff. I can't remember. I don't think it was in Remake, but they added a new mini game called Fort Condor. Played that a little bit. A bit of like a sort of tactical defense mission type game. That was quite fun. Did get involved in that in a bit. I don't tend to get involved in those sorts of things. Typically, like with Witcher 3, I didn't really play Gwent very much. I don't typically like them. But yeah, did play a bit of Fort Condor. Played a few of the box missions. We have to destroy the boxes. But yeah, the main draw was just that, yeah, she played very differently. It was quite fun. Very cutesy character. And yeah, pretty all right. Nothing to truly write home about. It wasn't a go must play. I think you could probably go into Rebirth with not playing this. I don't think it'd be taken away from your experience. But it was nice, a nice little gap filler to connect the two. So I think I'll give this a silver for my overall reaction. Good, worth a playthrough, but you know, don't be rushing out to get it because you're not missing too much. Over and out. Ta.